So we're going to understand this through really understanding what happens on Yom Kippur spiritually. What is going on besides for the fact on Yom Kippur we just know, well, I'm fasting, I'm eating before, I'm not wearing leather shoes, I'm not putting on lotions, I'm not showering, I'm not having my coffee, I'm going to shul, I'm taking care of kids, right? That's what happens in our lives. What happens in a deeper way? It happens in my soul. What happens in the world? What happens in the cosmos? What happens between Hashem and me? We're going to learn right now. Okay. I'm going to grab my water bottle.
It can explain also why, like, God will take this day really, like,
Oh, exactly. Thank you, Jenny and Dora, for drawing these beautiful concentric circles. Okay, these concentric circles are going to explain to us what happens on Yom Kippur. So we learn in Kabbalah that we actually have two neshamos. We have a nefesh, a bahamis, a human animal soul, and we have a godly soul. And in our godly soul, and actually in both souls, there's not just one part of the soul. There's 5 levels of the neshama. We learn this all over Kabbalah, all over the Zohar, all over Chassidut. In many texts, we learn that our neshama has 5 levels. Ready? We're going to learn the 5 soul levels today, and these 5 soul levels are so core to a lot that we experience in life. They parallel the 4 olamos and the 5th level. They parallel the 5 tefillos of Yom Kippur, and we're going to learn how they parallel many other things. But today we're going to learn how the 5 tefillos correspond to the 5 levels on our neshama, and how the 5 levels on neshama also correspond to the 5 areas in the Jewish people, the 5 levels of the Jewish people's camping in the desert, in the Midbar, which is connected to this week's parsha, right? Because they're still camping in that area, so we'll bring in the parsha a little bit. There's many more parallels that we'll get to other times. Okay, so these 5 levels on neshama, the Rizal says that I'll just briefly go over them in order. Okay, the first level we experience, there's 3 in the body and 2 that are not connected to the body. The 3 in the body are nefesh, right, which means soul, ruach, which means spirit, and neshama, which also means soul, right? Nefesh is the part of our soul that's connected to our actions, to our doing. It's the part of our soul that's connected to our physical body. It's the one that gives chayas to the physical body, and it's the part that's buried with the body. That's why when you go to the grave of somebody, it's not just a body. The nefesh is there. This part of the soul, the person remains there with the body. So it's the part of the soul that gives animation and gives chayas to a lifeless body. Even though it's not giving the body all of its life force, right? It's hovering over the body after a person passes away. When a person's alive, it's through that part, through the nefesh, it's giving the flow of energy to all the parts of the body where it needs to go, right? It's giving the energy to the eyes to see, and etc. The Rizal says that when a person comes down to this world, he's only given his nefesh. When a baby is born, he's only given his nefesh. And if he merits to really work on his nefesh and perfect his deeds, right, and make sure that every one of his deeds are imbued with holiness, then he merits to receive the next level of his soul. And that's why I drew it like concentric circles, because the nefesh is the outermost layer of your soul. It's not the innermost, right? It's the most external. It's the physical part of you. It's still holy, but if we can purify our actions and we can reach a level of really working on our actions and making sure that every word and action that we speak, we are so conscientious of, then we'll merit to receive a ruach in our body. That doesn't mean that we don't have all of them. It just means that we're not necessarily accessing them, then we'll be able to access our ruach. Our ruach is our emotive soul. It's connected to our emotions. It's the next layer in the circle. So the nefesh comes from the world of Asiya, which is the world of action, the world that we live in. The ruach comes from the world of above Asiya, which is, anyone know? And when Hashem created the world, it says there's many olamos, then world of Yitzira, the world of the angels, which are angels with form but no body. So that's really connected to emotions. Emotions take form, right? They take expression. They have expression, but they don't have a physical, tangible body to them. So we connect to the level of ruach, of perfecting and working on our emotions, on working on my feelings, right? Working on my anger, working on my love for people, working on my Bas Yisrael, working on what's going on inside my emotional world, right? That's the level of ruach. Ruach gives life force to my emotions, and that's connected to the next concentric circle. Then we go one step further. The Rizal says that if somebody works really hard on their emotions, right, and is very, very good about their midos and their emotions, then he merits to connect and access his neshama. Anyone want to take a guess what level neshama is? Neshama comes from Bria, which is the world of angels that don't even have a form. There's no, right, angels that said they have form, they have wings or whatever they do, right? This is the level of Bria, which actually is the world of souls. Souls come from the world of Bria. So souls don't even have a form, it's just potential. So Bria, in our neshama, and this is real, okay, the neshama is the intellectual soul. It's the part of our neshama, it's the life force that gives life, that gives chayas to our intellect. Our intellect is above our emotions, right? Our emotions we can't even control them, right? They're raging out of control, right? Sometimes they're like a lion, they roar, or they're like a lamb that's quiet. Our intellect is very powerful. So the highest that comes to our intellect comes through the neshama. And it's so fascinating to now know the difference between these names of the souls, because when you're learning Torah now, and you see that sometimes it uses the word nefesh, and sometimes it uses the word ruach, right? And then sometimes the word neshama, we're talking about different parts of our soul. We might be talking about the emotions, the body soul, the soul that gives highest to body and physical action, and the part of the soul that gives highest to our intellect. Those three are the levels of the soul that reside in our body, that we can feel tangibly. Our intellect happens over here, our emotions happen everywhere, but in our heart and all over, and our physical actions happen here. So those are the three parts of our neshama that most of us access. Now, I think we may have discussed this in the class, that a person doesn't always perfect, almost never does a person perfect all the levels of their soul in one lifetime. It's many, many, many lifetimes, and that's really the source for gilgulim, which are also circles. And a gilgul is, I think maybe that's why it's a circle, because the Rizal says that one of the reasons for a gilgul is that a neshama, it could take many lifetimes just to perfect your action, right? How we're all working on just our actions, right? Sometimes we're not even on the level of not feeling angry, we just don't want to act out in angry or scream in anger, right? Or speak in anger. So until a person will keep having a gilgul until they perfect their level of their actions, and then the neshama will then come down and then perfect the level of emotion, and then the level of intellect. And when it's been fully rectified, then the neshama no longer needs to come back down into a body, right? That was, anyways, another time we'll talk about more about the Shar Gilgulim. But that's one of the next two levels reside, they connect to the body, but they're not within the body. They don't reside within the body. The next two levels of our neshama, so we did the outer nefesh, nefesh physical, neshama emotive, ruach emotive, neshama intellectual. The next level is our chaya, right? The chaya is our spiritual connection. It's above intellect. It's our connection to the spiritual. It's that intangible spiritual connection of our neshama. It's described in the Navi and in the Gemara as sometimes as the mazel of the soul, right? The part of you that's the cosmic part, the soul that's beyond your body, the super conscious, not the subconscious, but the super conscious. It's the soul that senses the spiritual, that senses something beyond the realm of your body and your intellect. It's maybe your instinct. It's maybe your it's your sixth sense. And where does this reside? How do we see this in our lives? It's many times referred to in so many other practices as the aura, right? The emanation that comes from around your body. It's your aura, it's your halo in places, it's your energy, the energy that extends from you. We learned that in the Torah it says that everyone has an energy that extends Daled Amos around him. Around a living person, some people's energy is stronger and weaker. All of that comes from the chaya. Everything that you experience that's not physically in your body, but it's tangible, right? It's physical but not tangible, or it's there but it's not something tangible. It's not something you can see. The energies you give off, the aura you give off, the connection to the spiritual that we have, the mazel that sees above. It says it's above. There's a part of your neshama that's above your body that sees what's going on and can sense what's going on in the higher worlds, and it communicates information with your body. That's our sixth sense, our super conscious, right? All of those things are rooted in the Torah, in the Torah, and in our soul, in our chaya, right? So we access that part of our neshama. We actually only access on Shabbos. So let's get back to how this connects to the tefillos. Okay, so the chakras connects to the first thing we do, right? We're waking up with our body, connects to we access our neshama. Then through mincha, we access our nefesh, our physical soul. Then through mincha, we access our ruach. So we get deeper. Every tefillah takes us deeper and deeper to another deeper connection, our motive soul. And then through Ma'ariv, we access our deeper intellectual soul. Even in the times of the day, it's like the time of intellect, it's a time of learning. We access the intellectual soul. Then on Shabbos, everyone ascends to this world of chaya. And chaya comes from the world of Atzilos. So we had the Asiya, Yitzira, Bria, and then we have Atzilos. And we learned that there's an Aliyah Sa'olamos on Shabbos. Everyone in the world ascends to a higher world. Our world is imbued with like a little glimpse of living on a higher level on Shabbos. So on Shabbos we add a fourth tefillah, Musaf, which represents the chaya, and allows us to unlock and access the next level of our soul. And that's why on Shabbos we live on a higher level. Our connections are deeper with people because we can connect without even talking sometimes. We have a much more deep connection. That's why Shabbos is a time for husbands and wives to connect, for families to connect, for people to get together and spend time, because we're unlocking a much deeper part of our soul that really can access on Shabbos and Chagim. We could access other times, but automatically it's accessed on Shabbos and Chagim, right? The other shocking things can access it. Learning a lot and really working hard, we can access it other times, but on Shabbos we unlock and access this level of chaya. And now we're going to get to the last and fifth part of our neshama, called? Anyone know? Yechida. Problem. Called the Yechida. Thanks for joining. So the Yechida is the fifth and deepest dimension of the neshama. The Yechida is the quintessential part of our neshama. It's indescribable. It's untangible. It's the core of who you are. You can't describe who you are at your core. Right? It's the part of you that just knows itself, that it's at its core. Okay. Now this Yechida, it's that bond that's beyond any description. It's beyond Averot. On this level of the bond, it's like compared to the father-child, mother-child bond that is it's unbreakable. It's not a connection that because of what you do or don't do. It's not connected to my action, my words, my emotions, my thoughts. It's beyond everything. It's just I am one with Hashem. It's a oneness of connection that's not even described. That's not even describable by words. And this Yechida we don't usually access, right? Because it's not even something I can even talk about. So how can I access that or describe it? And we learn that we actually only access this on Yom Kippur and Purim, which came later on. But we actually only access this on Yom Kippur. And this is it's not something it's accessed on Yom Kippur and in times of Mesiras Nefesh, in times when a Jew's core is challenged. So in a relationship, I'll give you a mashal. In a relationship between a parent and child, right? There's a relationship of what you do for me, what you don't do for me, when you listen, when you don't listen, right? That's challenged on a daily basis. That's what we interact with the most. Then there's the loving part of relationship, how much I love you, what I feel for you, the emotional part of my relationship with you. Then there's the intellectual, having conversations with each other, right? And all of that could be challenged, right? A parent might sever, a child might, for whatever reason, have suffered so much from their parents, or parents have suffered so much from their child that they sever their entire physical connection. They don't communicate anymore. They have no connection anymore. They might sever their emotional connection. They don't talk. They don't express love in any way. They might even sever their intellectual connection. They don't even speak. Some people have never said I love you to their parents. They don't see them, but at least on the phone they talk and say, how are you, right? Wishing you a Shabbat Shalom, and that's it, right? That's their whole connection. Some people don't even have that. They might have experienced so much pain or whatever trauma they've experienced, or for whatever reason, they're so angry, there's so much anger, and there's so much anger in relationship that they completely cut off all of the levels of the physical, emotional, intellectual relationships with their parents, right? Or their child. And when it does that, but the bond is still there, right? Their parent is still the parent, and their souls are connected, right? They're connected in an undescribable way. We can't really put a finger on it, but they're connected, right? And when do we see that bond come to light? Almost never, right? Because they're not talking to each other. So where do we see that bond? We see it in times of Mesiras Nefesh, in times of life and death. When the child gets a call that their parent, God forbid, though no one should ever know this, that their parent is really ill and doesn't have much time to live, suddenly that connection is awakened, right? That deep connection, that bond that's unbreakable is awakened, and the child, without having to forgive, without having to talk about the issues or what made them so angry, they're there by their parents' bedside. In most situations, I've seen this happen with my own eyes to people that I know that have never spoken to their parents in many, many years. But when it comes to Shav, when their parent is dying, even if they don't go, they feel something in that moment. Even if they decide not to go for whatever reason, or they can't go, they still feel something in that moment. What are they feeling? Where is that coming from? That's the awakening of that intrinsic essential bond. If a parent, God forbid, also is so angry at a child and has so much pain and bitterness and anger at a child, when they hear that, God forbid, their child's in danger, or they don't have much time to live, or their health is questioned, the parent will be there no matter what. What's bringing that about? The awakening of the quintessential connection that they have, right? That they can't even define, the undefinable bond, right? Similarly, with a Jew and Torah mitzvahs, we see that bond, a Jew might have no connection to Hashem in Torah mitzvahs, in action, right? He does nothing ever, right? He doesn't even identify as a Jew. He doesn't feel anything for Hashem. He doesn't talk about it, right? He's no interest in connecting to Hashem, but suddenly someone asks him to convert, or there's a matter of life and death, and he's about to die, and for whatever reason he doesn't know, he screams out Shema Yisrael, or he starts to pray to Hashem and say, Hashem, forgive me, or Hashem, if you save me, then I'll do this. Where does that come from? Where is he suddenly calling out to Hashem? Why is he suddenly calling out Shema Yisrael? Why is a Jew saying, no, I'm not going to convert to Christianity at that last moment? What's stopping him? Where is that? It's the awakening of that essential bond that's there. We call it the Pintel Yid, the core self, the core Atzmos. It's the I am Hashem and Hashem is a part of me. That it's usually dormant, right? It's called it's like the one of the mashalim for it is the fire inside a Flintstone, right? The potential of the fire inside a Flintstone is the potential for fire. It's only brought out, right? It's not brought out, but it's there and it's covered up in the recesses of the Flintstone only in times of like tremendous, right, need and necessity. When rubbing it against matter of life and death, then you'll see that potential come out, right? So it comes out in matters of life and death, in a time of Mesiras Nefesh sometimes, in a time when a person is given the choice to convert, or in a time of life and death. But for the most part, it's not awakened, except on Yom Kippur. So this is really what's going on Yom Kippur. So let's connect this to the 5 tefillos now. So we have the 5 5 levels of the soul that parallel the 5 tefillos, right? We said Shachar, Mincha, Ma'ariv. On Shabbos, we access Chaya. Only once a year, we access the 5th tefillah, the 5th level of our soul, Yechida, which is revealed from the day itself. Nothing, we don't do anything. The day itself, on Yom Kippur, on that day, what happens is that Hashem uncovers and reveals this bond that's usually completely covered up because it's something that's so deep and undefinable. But on Yom Kippur, Hashem completely removes all of the layers and reveals that bond in such a strong way that we're forced. That's why Dror was saying that a Jew who has no connection, a Jew in an island who's vacationing, eating non-kosher, in Tarzana, in Africa, right? Suddenly, there's Chabad that pops up there for Yom Kippur because suddenly these Jews who have no connection, don't even keep kosher, they feel the need to go to Shul on Yom Kippur, to fast on Yom Kippur. Something inside of them doesn't want them to eat on Yom Kippur, right? What? There's something inside of them that stirs, that they feel something, that they feel like I need to be in Shul. That's why there's thousands upon 10,000s of Jews who come to Shul on Yom Kippur who don't have nothing externally, they don't even understand why, and they'll question, they'll say, where's this coming from? And they'll try to rationalize it, right? But it's coming from that unbreakable bond of their neshama that's being revealed on the day. So that's how the Tzima Shel Yom HaChaper, that the essence of the day itself atones because it reveals a connection that's beyond sin. So I'm going to get to you in one sec, that the day itself reveals a connection that on that level, there is no sin. So we learned that we have many levels of connection with Hashem. We have levels, we connect to Hashem through Torah, but we connect to Hashem through Teshuvah, and beyond that, we connect to Hashem beyond Torah mitzvos. So there's a level of our connection to Hashem, just like the parent-child, that's deeper than the issues that we have, right? And on that level, we learn of our soul connection with Hashem. There is no sin. Sin can't even tarnish that. It doesn't even touch that, right? The worst Avera can't even touch that connection. It doesn't even go there. On that level, we never sin to begin with. And when that level, when the parent-child bond is restored, right? If God forbid there's a moment where the parent is or the child thinks something happened to their parent, and then they embrace, they don't need to go and talk about everything right now because all of the distance disappears, right? Disappeared, and they're just so happy to be one again. We don't need to go, even though we do teshuvah for all of our Avirot, that's to heal our relationship on a level, on the more external levels, right? Because afterwards we'll be repairing to do. But on the day itself, everything is forgiven because we remember that we're one, and that anything that happened doesn't even touch that oneness. That oneness is complete and sacred, whether beyond any break, it's not even damageable. There is no sin that can touch that relationship, and therefore when that's revealed, it's as if nothing ever happened, as if there was no distance. We're just so happy to reunite and be one again with Hashem that everything else falls away. So this happens in the biblical times. This happened when the Kohen Gadol only once a year entered. Okay, so let's talk about where the Kedusha was physically then and where it is now. Then it was in a physical space. The Shekhinah of Hashem was in Machane Yisrael, which they accessed right all the time in the level of Nefesh. Then there was Machane Leviim, right? And then there was the Machane of where the Jewish people camped. There was holiness. It said that the cloud of the Shekhinah was there. Then wherever the Leviim camped, there was an even more intense holiness. Then there was the Chatzer, the area, the Mishkan, where everyone was able to go and bring sacrifices. The whole entire area of the Mishkan, which had an even higher level of holiness, on the level of Bria, right? And then they can access an even deeper level of holiness in the Kodesh, right? Where in the Kodesh, where the Kelim were, right? Where what was in the Kodesh? The menorah and the Mizbeach, etc. And then the 5th level they didn't access usually. The 5th level of Kedusha was so intense that they couldn't access it, except for once a year in Yom Kippur. Only the Kohen Gadol could access that connection, right? And what's so amazing, so that's how they access that level, and through the Kohen Gadol entering the Kodesh Kodashim and connecting to the Yechida, he brought that kapara for everyone else. What's amazing is that now we don't have this level, we don't have the places of Hashem being there and then accessing it physically. We access it within ourselves, within the concentric circles of our soul. So we access that place that the Kohen Gadol only access once a year. We connect to that through Ne'ilah. Every one of us, not just the Kohen Gadol, not just the rabbi, right? Not just the leader of the community. Each one of us through Ne'ilah unlock and access that infinite connection that the Kohen Gadol had with Hashem in the Kodesh HaKodashim. For real. And it's just crazy. And then in that moment of Ne'ilah, we've unlocked the 4 levels of our soul. And we've gotten to the 5th dimension now, the 5th level, where it's just me and Hashem and nothing else. And that's why Ne'ilah, the word for Ne'ilah means lin'ol, to lock. And many imagine it, we say that the gates of heaven are closing, right? And it's your last chance to daven because Hashem is sealing us our year, right? Telling us our year, and the gates of heaven are closing, and it's our last moment moments to daven before the gates close, right? And that's why we pray in our last moments of connection, our last moments of teshuvah before the gates close, and that's it, right? We're sealed, for everything's written down and done and sealed. Chassidus understands it so differently than that image that we may have had, that Ne'ilah, it's like chase those gates because they're going to close, as we imagine the locking of the din or whatever it is. Chassidus says, what's the locking? It's like the yichud room. It's in the yichud room when you have to, in order for their bride and groom to be able to consider that they were married, they're in a room with yichud and the door is locked, right? Locked behind them. It's locked and only they're in that room. When the Kohen Gadol went in that room, right, it was as if it says in the Gemara that it was only him and Hashem and no one else. And it's brought down that when the Zohar actually says that it's Bnei Yisrael and Hashem are alone, and Chassidus says it's not that the gate is locking and we have to chase it, rather that in Ne'ilah it's me and Hashem alone, our souls as one, and the gate door is locked behind us. It's that time of yichud, of oneness, where nothing can enter that space. And the locking is that I'm in that room with Hashem, and the gate is locked behind me. No one can enter that. No sin can enter that. Nothing can touch that in that moment that I'm accessing that connection. So even though we think that there's a time for each level in Yom Kippur, we learn that the effects of Ne'ilah are the entire day that's revealed. I'm connecting to it tangibly through the Ne'ilah service. Even if I don't know the words, even if I'm reading in English, in that moment is a time when every single person Jew is alone with Hashem in the Yechidos. It says Yechidai leyechedcha, my Yechida to Hashem's Yechida. My essence, the essential bond is there and connecting in that moment, and it's just us, and nothing can enter that space, and that's why there's that locking behind us.